right. We've got the two up front, the two that pick up the phone every day. And the first that people see, the first that people hear in the NewEdge office. We got Jess Lewis and Katie Caven on the Financial Edge podcast here today. And kind of my thought behind this as to why you two are the next ones in the realm of the 5 or 6 other podcasts that we brought in is to kind of bring the story in-house, right? To let people into the doors beyond just knowing NewEdge Advisors that we are right now, right? Brad, Bob, Scott, and the crew that we've got here, but really bring in the thought process of the engine that really keeps this thing moving, right? And with Jess, I know you've been here the same amount of time as I am. We're both coming up on our decade-long stay here with, Ranky Gray, now NewEdge Advisors. Katie, you're going to be coming up on, is it year 3 here? 2 at the end of May?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of
Yes,
May. The beauty of that is it seems longer because of all the work that we're doing, right? And I think that's important to just acknowledge is all the things that have gone forward. But the big thing there is, like I mentioned, I wanted people to kind of have an inside look of everything that's going on at the front door of what we're doing here. And who better than the two ladies that are at the forefront of that battlefield, right? So, with that, Jess, we're going to start with you. Just, maybe a little bit of just a quick background of where you came from, how you got here and where we're at and where we're going forward. Just simple side of things. Bring us up to speed of who Jess Lewis is.
Yeah. So from Webster, South Dakota, graduated high school there, went on to Northern State University, met my husband there, Sean Lewis. He was going to school to be a teacher, graduated, started his teaching career in a small town, Elk Point, South Dakota. When we lived down there, yeah, that was right up in your neck of the woods. When we lived down there, I chose to work with the school district and started my Braille certification. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do in college. I changed my major 3 times and I thought, oh, this sounds interesting when the school needed help. So we started there. Sean decided he wanted to go back to Aberdeen to get his master's degree. So we moved back there. And at that time, I started working with Vision Care Associates, so ophthalmology, and it was fun. We got to style people in glasses all day. So that was kind of interesting. And then I had a really good friend of mine to this day. She's a very, very best friend. She goes, hey, do you want to come and help me be a manager of my store? And so at that time, then I got into sales and gourmet and kitchen food. And that kind of started the whole like customer service front base for me. But then from there, 2011, John found out that we were going to be moving to Pierre. And I was like, oh my gosh, we go from like Sioux Falls base to Aberdeen base, and we're going to Pierre where we're like, there's no Target. They barely have a Walmart. We're going to be in the middle of nowhere. It turned out to be great. I love it here. We love our family and friends that we built. But yeah, so that's where that was kind of my background. This is where we're at now for 15 years. So it's hard to believe.
Yeah. Crazy there, because I think I had a similar thought when I left Sioux Falls with my buddy Sean Schnabel at the time, when I got out of my master's program, so on and so forth, and looking for like, where am I going to land in this grand scheme of things, right? Threw out a dart to Pierre, South Dakota, where they had a couple of gigs for both of us to go. I'm like, if we're going to do this, at least I'm going with somebody. Like, where are we even going? Like, I know the state capital's there, but beyond that, like, isn't it all basically in the middle of nowhere? But same spot, 15, 16 years or whatever that I've been here now, and the flag's pretty deep. The difference there, Jess, between you and I is I ended up marrying a girl from Pierre, South Dakota, which makes it even stickier.
More permanent.
Yeah, without a doubt. But I certainly know that in the gig that I'm in, and I know from the conversations that we've had, feel really good about the position that we're in now, that I feel like the flag's pretty deep in this NewEdge ship that we're riding along anyhow. So a cool way to kind of get there. So we'll bounce over to Katie here, who's got a story of her own that leads her back to central South Dakota. So, Katie, how about you kind of bring us up to speed on your journey that you had to get where we're at right now, all sitting in this riverside studio together?
Sure. Yeah. So I actually grew up in Minnesota. I'm about 100 miles west of the cities and went to Augustana for college, for undergrad. So that's how I ended up in the Sioux Falls area. Oh, says the USF guy here. And my husband was there also. That's where I met him, Ben. And we actually stayed in Sioux Falls for a while. He started working over on the Iowa side of the border, and I was traveling down to Vermilion every day to graduate school. I got my master's in occupational therapy there. After about 4 years of him working in Iowa and commuting that direction every day, we decided to move over the border about 20 minutes to the Iowa side. And we lived there for about another 12 years. Until kind of like you, Scott, we were thinking, all right, well, let's see what else is out there. Unlike you, it was with my husband, so it was a little more difficult
Yeah.
than just with a friend. Like, where do we want to land? We
Yeah.
had 3 kids to think about at the time, but we knew we wanted to get back to the South Dakota side. Opportunities came up here that worked for both of us. Love the area. We love to be outdoors. We love to be on the water, hunting, fishing, hiking, all the things. And so, in regards to the opportunities that Pierre had for our kids and what we wanted for our family, we ended up here back in summer of 2023. So it'll be 3 years this year that we've been here, and coming up on 2 here at New Edge.
Right. Yeah. Wild, right? I mean, that's three outsiders in the grand scheme of things, planting flags in central South Dakota and all in I know, Katie, you're on the early part of falling in love with the area, but I mean it's certainly already grasped you enough that it resonates with you with the community side of things, the people that we're surrounding ourselves with. And I know you'd mentioned kids, Jess. I know you've got a handful of yourself. I've got three of my own. And I feel like that's such an important aspect of where you plant your flag is the community that you're bringing your kids up, right? And I mean, let's speak to that. In my 2 cents, the place that I live in now in the neighborhood, one of the reasons we threw our flag there was because when we drove by, it was an array of kids running around the neighborhood of what I remember of my childhood, playing ditch 'em at night and having my dad yell out, "Scott, get home. It's dark out," whatever it might be. And now me on the other side yelling out for, Tucker, Tegan, and Jensen going, "Hey, Yardbirds, get home. We got school tomorrow. Bring us back in." But I certainly feel like Pierre's got a great sense of community and togetherness that really brings people together in what's not a small town like I grew up of 800 people in Alcester, and Webster was, I guess, I don't know how big Webster is, but it certainly isn't
2,500. Yeah.
right to the size of where we're at here in Pierre. And how big was your town, Katie,
Oh,
that
it
you
was
lived
about
in?
double Pierre. Yeah.
Okay. So a little bit
Yep.
bigger nonetheless. And maybe you can speak to that of what childhood was like there and to what you've seen here. But I love that aspect of that small town type feel, but having even the Walmart, having some really good storefronts and having some great restaurants that you can go to. Sure, it's not the 1,000 or whatever that's in Sioux Falls, but I would put some of our restaurants up to any of them that they've got out in other areas. I mean, if you're looking for a steak, I've never had a bad time going out to Cattleman's and getting something done there, right? But how has the kids and the development of them through the system of the peer area and in the school system and the sports side of things, how's that worked for you guys?
Yeah. Sean grew up in a little town called Tabor, South Dakota, which is in down in Bonham County, very even smaller than Webster. And I think when we started having kids, we wanted to be in a community that was small enough because we all grew up with, oh, we knew everybody in our class, right? We knew what
Yeah.
Johnny and Timmy and Jenny were all doing. You drive up and down Main Street. I wanted my kids to experience that too. And I really felt when we were in Aberdeen, that was I mean, that was a big school. I mean, you had classes of 3 or 400 kids. And, so I really appreciate that about Pierre. I always say it's a little big town where it's small enough that you have your tight knit, I should say friends or friends you consider family, but yet it's big enough. Like you don't see the same people at Walmart every day or the grocery
Yeah.
store every day. So, and I think especially with the school, I just love how even though we're considered a bigger class within the state, we have such a great community backing of our kids, and I really appreciate that. And my oldest has graduated and he's experienced that, but even more so seeing the fact that my younger two are going to be able to have that and have experienced it. I just really appreciate that more than anything because it's really that small town feel in a really big town. So,
Yeah, and I would really bounce off of what you guys said in that regard. Like you mentioned, Scott, the town I grew up in was much bigger than Pierre, which had its pros and cons, right? And then where we chose to raise our kids when we were first building our family in Northwest Iowa was very small. We had pre-K through 12 in one school building, right? It was
Yeah.
a very, very small area, Inwood, Larchwood, Iowa. And my kids were honestly devastated when they heard we were moving to Pierre, South Dakota, right? Like, where is this? And it's like 4 hours away. And what are we doing? We don't know anyone and we don't have family out there. They really love that really small, tight knit community. And I think so many people can resonate with that, whether it's from their childhood or where they live now. And there's so many wonderful things about that. But they were also at the age that they wanted to explore and see that there's more opportunities and a bigger world out there. And whatever they choose to do in the future is up to them, but they're really thriving and enjoying that same small town community feel, but not having to see those same classmates where they know every single one of them going anywhere they go and everybody knowing their business all the time is kind of how they look back and see the difference between the
Yeah.
two. Both of them, wonderful things to say about both sizes, both areas. It's just really where we're at in a time in our life and our family right now where this is just the perfect size, the perfect fit, and they've really loved everything about Pierre so far.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's like you mentioned about like the K through 12, Al's sister was very much that same setup. I mean, I think we had 45, 47 kids that I graduated with, in which he knew every single one of them and, where they were at, the house that they were in, and all those types of things. I got three kids in elementary and there's four different elementaries and that, everybody communicates or not, coagulates or however you want to put it back to the middle school where you've got now this new you grew up in, say, Jefferson, or you went to Buchanan, or you went to St. Joe's or Kennedy or wherever it is, and then you get the mix of everybody again at the middle school side, which brings its own dynamic in of these new friends that maybe you didn't have that clicky best friend at your elementary, but you find that new person in the middle school, and you just continue to grow. Which I think it's like you said, it's big enough that there's variety and differences in people and all those types of things to find where you fit in the grand scheme of things, versus the itty bitty town where, I mean, it just is, the seven of you that you're with. That's just how it goes. But, the cool thing with each of us as well, and I know I'm going back to kind of the start of what we chatted with is none of us really had like, hey, you know what? I want to be a financial advisor. I want to go work in the finance world. I want to earmark myself in that sector of the market. And for me, I was a biology major that went into education and found my path here. And I tell people often, I feel like this is where my home was. This is what I was born to do, was to be in this position. Coaching as well. I think coaching was the flat line of where I needed to be. And it just be coaching money is the concept that I've fallen into, type of a thing. But you guys had some interesting paths there too. I mean, how do you think, and I know Jess, you'd mentioned it with the sales side, the customer service piece there. And I know Katie, you got a side of that in your path as well. How do you think those past gigs has developed you to the successful person that you are in at NewEdge? Because you are two great assets to what we do. I see it every day, but how have those background pieces grown you into the positions that you're at? Katie, what's your thoughts there?
Sure. Well, for me personally, it's a very different path, right? From healthcare and occupational therapy, I worked both in the hospitals and the schools, into the financial world in an office, right? At a computer every day. But at the same time, there's so many similarities because in occupational therapy, we teach activities of daily living, right? That's what we do every day. We work with our patients, our clients on how do they get the best quality of life based on the activities they need to do every day. Whether that's dressing, playing, working, but finances are a big part of that too. And
Yeah.
so it's been interesting to kind of see how that carries over. And we're working with people in every stage of their life. We're working with kids who are turning 18 and planning their future. We're working with kids who are graduating college and moving into careers. We're working with people who are planning for their own kids and grandkids and retirement. And so there's so many different milestones that, we see in
Yes.
the office every day, helping with those activities of daily life and improving quality of life. And so it's been kind of interesting to see how those actually do intercede here in our world compared to what I was doing in healthcare. So, not a path I would have predicted for myself, but it's been fun to kind of see that overlap.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit a key term there, milestones, right? I mean, that's in any aspect, somebody can resonate with that key term there. Wherever you're at in your journey, there's milestones that we're running into. And we have a daily interaction with different people in those regards, right? From the person that maybe just lost a job that's going, what do I even do with this next retirement plan that I have or whatever it is? And us together as a group can do that to get that person to that next stage to make it easy for them to that spot to then I just had my first kid. How do I get them set up for college and everything else? And then we're talking about that to, we just lost our grandma and, we heard that she had client or accounts with you guys and they bring a death certificate in. We go through the whole process and now we get to know a new group of people on that milestone that happened, the good, the bad, the ugly, the sad. I mean, the whole spectrum we in some way get to be a part of, which I thoroughly enjoy because it's that constant change and movement that's happened that it's not like, hey, you're just working with this group every single day. I mean, you've got an array of emotions that are happening, and we haven't even talked about the market yet of how the emotions can change there. But nonetheless, we're dealing with life constantly coming at these people and hitting these different milestones. So it's a perfect example. Jess, what's your thoughts on how your background has given you the advantages that you have here, which are phenomenal?
Yeah, yeah. So, growing up, the first part of my childhood up until I was probably about 13, I grew up on a farm. And my dad, and I should say my grandparents always taught me like you work hard, you do the best you can to service the land and the cattle that are supplying your need. And then you have a lot of faith because at the end of the day, you can't control what's going to happen with the weather or, farming. It's a whole nother ballgame. So with that being said, I always had that mindset of a servant, of servicing others. And growing up, just looking at my past jobs, where it led me here today, I think when we're servicing others, we're looking at what are their goals and what are their wants and what are their needs. So whether it was working in an optician's office and you're talking about glasses and you're fitting people, and it's like, okay, well, what are you looking for, right? And then it's going into sales, where my job was to go into a store and say, okay, let's see what you have, and then let's see how we can make it better. And
Yeah,
I think that servicing mind frame of how can we leave this better than where we started, or what opportunities are out there for you to buy this product that might work better in your store. And now coming forward to where I've been the last 10 years, it's working with people and their finances. It's okay, how can I service you? What products can I give you, or what information can I give you to help you reach your goals, or to make life a little easier for you. So in the whole grand scheme of things, I just think in the back of my head, if we can always remember to service people the best of our ability, it's going to go a long way to reach their goals. So
yeah. No, absolutely. So same thing. I've got this image right on the top of my little poster here, and I've shared this with the football teams. I've shared it with other people, but it says leadership. I wish it said our servant leadership or servant leader type of a thing on there. But then underneath of it, it says winners get to the top to look back to see who they've beaten. Leaders get to the top to see who they could bring up with them.
mhm.
Right. And I think that is speaking to exactly what you mentioned there, Jess, in the sense of servicing people and putting their needs in front of your own the term in our world is fiduciary, right? You're putting the best interest of the clients in front of the interest of the advisor, or the admin, or the group that we work with, right? We're thinking about what it is that they've got or what they need in the moments that they're trying to get moving forward in the life, to do their best. And it's such a game changer when you can, put yourself in a position that you're helping others on a consistent basis, right? And I know, Katie, you kind of mentioned this, finance it's a taboo subject by all means, because not like everybody's like, well, hey, let's look at what my 401k balance is and yours, and let's have a good old talk, right? I mean, those things don't naturally come up, but we do know the impact of what good finances, good wealth management, or just money in general can do for a person. And I lean that in to what I've always kind of coined what my job is as a financial advisor. If I could change that title to professional worrier so you don't have to, I think that is ultimately what we do, right? Because we get these emotions of people that come into us, whether they know what they want, don't know what they want, or they just had something happen to them that they're emotionally trying to figure out what they need. We become that person that listens and absorbs everything that they're throwing at us. And then we have to take that input and then direct it to the best output for what they're really trying to get accomplished through the smiles, the tears, and everything else that we deal with. Right. And let's speak to that, because I'm going to knock on wood real quick. We haven't had a phone ring, and maybe somebody shut them off right now, which is surprising in the back end of the tax season.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we get a lot of calls that we don't know what's going to end up on the other end of the phone, right? And some of them are positive engagements, some of them are negative engagements. How do you think you guys are best suited to deal with those, and how do you cope and feel that engagement to then properly interact with a person that maybe is not too happy with the ACH that didn't hit at 3 o'clock or whatever it might be? How does that work for you guys?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of, in the back of my head, I always feel like, what if I were on the other end of that phone call, you know, and I had the situation, I would probably have the same emotions as that person, too, depending on what it is. It could be a death, it could be a crisis, it could be, hey, I just need to talk to somebody. I think always answering the phone and saying, hey, we're going to help you. Don't worry. It's going to be okay. Because, like you said, that's our job, right? Our job is
Yeah,
the one to worry. But I just think at the end of the day, it's about me. We're not in their shoes, and we have no right to judge of what they're going through, but we can help make it better. And
yes,
that's what we're here for. We're here to make it better. So,
yeah. And now, Katie, and yours, 2 years in, one, you're learning, right? So as these calls are coming in, and you might be answering the phone going, what in the world is this person even talking about? No fault of yours or theirs, but now you're navigating not only emotions, but even your own personal understanding of where we even need to go. How have you, in the short time frame that you've been here, been able to navigate those channels, which can be rocky to begin with?
Yeah, I think one of our biggest assets here in our office as a team is our collaborative, communicative team. We are so open and authentic and honest with each other, with our clients. And I think that even through a phone call, people know that and they can feel that. We're not trying to beat around the bush and try to smooth everything over. We know life happens and we're all humans, and there's things that are out of our control or things that we make mistakes on. And I think, we can pride ourselves here in our office that we're never trying to hide anything from anyone. We're always authentic, we're always honest, and we're always working together to work through those situations and solve problems for people and understand where they're coming at. Like Jess said, putting ourselves in their shoes and understanding that emotions are high with all the different things that happen in life, and finances are stressful. Finances are
Yeah.
a huge part of our emotions every
Yep.
day. whether for better or worse. And obviously, we work in a volatile section with never knowing what's happening, in the market. And people look to you, Scott, and the other guys in the office here for that expertise. And again, I think we just really keep an open line of communication between each other in the office and the person on the other end of the phone. So
Yeah, you're exactly right. And we're kind of a unique build that we're all one team versus these siloed operations where it's I'm working with this client and and somebody walks in and I want them versus they want them, and there's a tug and pull of who gets them for whatever commission, or and not even commission, 'cause we don't even do that stuff, but you get the concept there. I mean, if you're in the sales of, if they go to another store, Jess, you don't make any of the money there type of a thing, but if they come to you, then it's going to be, and it's that back and forth. Whereas here, it's such a nice way to interact with people that we're all moving together, right? And I use this same thing. I always go back to my coaching side. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right?
Mhm.
And when I think about the journey that we've been on, like we're coming up to our 40th year of a company. I know we haven't been here that long, but nonetheless, 40 years, that's already a pretty long distance. But in my mind, I've got a couple of teammates here in Katie and Jess that I'm going, how do we take this even farther? Right? 40 years is great, but 80 looks even better. How can we continue to build the ship and broaden our depth and understanding of the people that we work with, and then continue to reach more, to make this that much more impactful for the people that um, we hang out with, the people that we see, the people that even that we don't know that are looking to be served and led, to go forward. I think you're exactly right, Katie. Our group as a team works just like that for one goal, which is servicing the people that we are lucky to trust and work with us, right? And now bringing that kind of full circle, we're going to bring back into the family side. I coach, there's some commonalities between each other here. We've got two spouses that coach wrestling programs in the Pierre district, which is awesome. They've been incredibly successful programs. Ben just finishing up his first year. Sean's been around I mean, he doesn't have any more hair. I think he had hair when he started, type of a thing. But nonetheless, how does that dynamic of being in kind of a coach's family, develop what we're doing here, and then what you're just interacting with as a regular parent, mom, and then spouse of a coach? How does that work for you guys?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things we've always told our kids since they were starting off in their own, athletic career world, whatever you want to call it, work hard, have fun. And I always said, if you're not working hard, you're gonna be like, sitting on the sidelines. You're gonna be mad because you're not in the game, but you're also not gonna be having fun either. So you're gonna have to find a way to put in the work. You're gonna have to find the way to go the extra mile. You're gonna have to find the way to get to where you want to be in your goals. And that means you might have to do things that other people aren't doing. And
Right.
I think the biggest thing with Sean coaching, gosh, it's going to be next year will be 20 years. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Um, you know, is there's a little bit of a unique side when you see the passion coming from, I should say, the coach's side versus a parent sitting in the stand, right? And for the longest time, we were kind of in both worlds where you would just be, okay, we're going to load up the kids, we're going to go to the gym, and we're going to support dad and in his careers. And then now that's transitioned to, well, I'm also the parent now in that same spot, sitting in the gym, supporting the kids. But I also appreciate the fact that that work hard, have fun mentality has carried over from Sean into our kids, but it also carries over like in our personal life, and even within our jobs. If you're not enjoying the people that you're working with and you're not working hard at what you're doing, you're not going to be where you want to be, and ultimately that falls on you. Um, and I think the other biggest thing overall with him coaching and what we tell our kids is relationships are everything. Whether you have a relationship with your teammates, with your coach, know your people, know what their paths are. And also that might be part of your journey for just a little bit, but it might be part of your journey for a long time. to just really embrace the people that we've met probably along the last 20 years, and then also to embrace the families that have been, part of our journey. And even to this day, some of those families are probably closer than what my own personal families are, that they're my friends. Especially when you're in a town where you have no grandpas or grandmas, guess what? You're calling the coaches' wives to come take care of your kids or pick them up from school because you
Yeah.
can't. So I think overall, just knowing that if we stick to that, work hard, have fun, it's definitely been a long, um, I should say, probably more going forward life lessons at the end of the day of
Right.
what we want to accomplish.
Yeah. No, no, yeah. Work hard and have fun. I mean, two big aspects of anything. And if you can really buy into those, then you can see reap the success and the fruits of that labor by doing those types of things. I always, I come back to myself. It's the people that, whether they argue or complain or whatever it is, you're like, well, are you putting in as much effort as you really can to get what you want? Or is it just easier to complain about the result? Right. Because as a Minnesota Vikings fan, I can complain every Sunday afternoon um, about but I know that they're putting in the time, right? I know the coaches, as a coach myself, I know that I'm putting in the time, but sometimes the chips don't fall as you'd like them, right? And same thing on a wrestling mat, you're going to have those one-offs where, you get beat or whatever it is. And I know in like Ben's case, I mean, it's his first year here, but he's got years of experience of doing this already. I mean, even in the change of where he came from to where he's at now, Katie, how has that process been at the family dynamic of having him running? Did he have a girls program that he ran before? Or was he boys before? Because my guess is it's got to make it a little bit different.
Oh yeah, it's different for sure. So very similar to Sean, we're headed into year 19 here of coaching for
Awesome.
Ben, and 16 of those were spent. Well, actually 18 if you include middle school here in Pierre, but in Iowa it was head coach of boys for 16 years. In addition to helping with the youth program and all of that, and
Yeah.
getting girls started in Northwest Iowa, things are just starting for the girls program.
Yep.
Um, but boy, is it different, because not only are you going from boys to girls, which there's a big difference there, not
Yep.
just on, dynamics, but emotions and physicality
Oh,
and all the different things. But we're also now coaching our own daughter. So
yeah.
that brings in a whole different dynamic as well. He's really enjoyed coaching the girls. Obviously, it's a change, different for everybody involved, but the girls are so coachable. And you tell Jess and I what to do, and we're going to sit and we're listen, and we're going to do what you want us to do, Scott.
Yes.
But yeah, girls are coachable, so it's pretty fun. It's been a good time. But like I said, just that different hat from coach to dad coach at the same time. And then not only am I, and Jess can relate to this from her kids over the years too, but you watch them coach other kids to now coaching your own child, and it just brings a different experience for sure. But in wrestling and other individual sports, just like life, like you can't just quit. It's about resilience and hard work, and knowing that, you're not just going to get on the mat, and when things get hard, you can't just stop and walk away. You got to finish it and see it through. So yeah, it's been a fun journey so far.
No, yeah, I love it. I mean, I love what coaching brings to the table. I love what a team brings to a table. I love what sport, I love what competition brings out of a person, because then you get to kind of see, like you said, that resiliency that they've got in them, to show a little bit of grit and toughness. And to spin that back to what we deal with on the daily is the market volatility, right? And in a lot of what we deal with on phone calls and things like that, maybe somebody calling in, and the start of this year hasn't been terrific by any means. It makes it a heck of a lot easier when the market just goes up and away. And if we could just tie all of our dollars to helium balloons and just let them rise straight up, this would be an easy game. But no different in how we're coaching, and certainly in my office, and you guys deal with on the front of a phone call of whatever it might be, is somebody that's going, hey, what in the heck is going on here in the market? Why are my accounts down? Why is this happening? But at the end of the day, it's what's the plan that we have in place? no different than a wrestling plan or a football plan or a basketball plan. What did we talk about from the get-go that we've been working on every day? And now that we've come to this storm, this pivotal moment where things aren't perfect, are we going to go away from everything that we've taught and learned and bought into to go and change to something that seems safe, like, just selling everything and going to cash or whatever it might be? Or am I going to grit and grind and dig my feet in on the disciplined fundamental pieces of what we're supposed to do when things get tough, and then get our way through the other end, right? And I know in both your guys' cases, you guys see it with your kids now that are wrestling right now. We just ended up the state tournament here a month ago or whatever it is, and I know that there's things that we wanted more of, but then it's now, hey, let's go back to working. Let's not just quit and hang up and shut it down. And it's something that we see all the time in our world, but we're certainly teaching as a coach and as a parent all the time to our kids. And it's funny because we get to do it with adults sometimes that are coming in just as fearful as anything else. And the fun part about that is, and I use this a lot with people, is we've been able to, fortunate enough to retire people for 40 years, right? You get to retire one time. We've got to make sure we do that right. And it's having the conversations with somebody at 35 to get them ready at 65, but it's also talking to that person that's 65 and going, hey, you're just walking into our door. Let's get our arms around what's going on in your life to figure out the path that you're leading going forward. And then let's break down what your fundamentals are. Are they good fundamentals of spending and buying and purchasing? Or are you a saver and all those things? But there's so many commonalities, I feel like, with our industry, with everything that's out there, because we're all experiencing a lot of these things for a first time, right? And it's in those that we get these little victories that you can really lean back on, like, man, I'm doing it. I'm doing the right job. I'm doing the right thing. And speaking like that, what in a day-to-day operation, or even a bigger scheme, if you want it, what's a victory or a win that you guys kind of hold your hat on a daily event or something that happens that you're like, all right, this is okay. I'm okay with what we're doing here. Is there something that you can acknowledge that, like, pinpoint, here's a small victory that kind of made me feel good in what we're doing here today? Katie, your thoughts?
Just defer to you on the first one. My brain's spinning here. You
Yeah,
want me to
yeah,
pick
my
one
bad.
thing?
I threw you on the spot. I wanted to go to the other side to let you go, type of a thing. But no, I mean, like I said, it's one of those where, just thinking about the interactions that we have on a phone call, the people walking in, all the paperwork that we do, things of that sort. There's little victories that I always kind of hang my hat on. In my case, it's when somebody sits across from me and goes, I never had it explained to me like that before, and it makes so much more sense. And when I think about myself as a former teacher, and what I think about as being a coach, because I'm not the smartest guy in the room without a doubt. So I've had to always figure out things. How do I make it the easiest way possible to understand? Because if I can understand it, man, I can probably explain it to anybody. And if they can start understanding it, I use it off. If I can get you comfortable and confident in what we're doing, you're going to buy into what it is that we're doing. And I want to marry you for another 30 years. That's where I really feel like my shoulders pick back and I stand up a little bit taller and I walk the client out and send them up to you guys to do all the rest of the work type of thing. But nonetheless, that's where I kind of hang my hat on. And I have a lot of those interactions with people. I mean, if you could think of something like that you're just like, man, that was awesome.
Yeah, a few things kind of come to mind there. I think Katie kind of touched base on this earlier, but I think the beauty of our office is that we're very small, but we're very efficient, and I really appreciate that. Um, so many times, I would say out of a week, I get a thank you for answering the phone. That could probably be the number one right there. It's so nice to talk to somebody and not like an automated system or wait, you have to be on hold. Like that to me, and even experiencing that on my own in some of my own situations, I'm like, yes, thank you for just being present. I think number
Yeah.
one. The second thing is I think sometimes people think about finances. Like when I first started, I didn't know finances, but I knew that I knew how to service people. I knew how to, ask for help and say, "What can I help you with?" When people think of finances, they think it's maybe some complex, like, formula that you have to put together to retire. And like you said, if we can go ahead and make that a little bit more simple and break that down, because in reality, it is a simple thing. And when we talk to people on the phone, and it's like, "Oh, well, I didn't realize it was that simple." Yeah, it is. You just have to call me and call Katie, call Scott, call Bob, Brad, Jared, whoever, and it can be simple. So, I think it's more or less people getting, okay to ask questions that maybe you're like, "This might be a stupid question, Jess." No, no, no question is stupid. But I think it's more or less the fact that we can simplify things, and that might be, "How much can I put into my Roth?" Or how much can I max out for the year? Or what's the difference between a 529 and a UTMA? Just some of those simple things that they're simple, but to some people it might be a little overwhelming. So
Yeah,
I would say when it comes to success stories or the helpful tips that we can do when people call in, it's very little things to us, but it might be big things to them in the long run. So
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
Scott, I think off of what both of you said, I think the reason it's so hard for me when you say pinpoint, a win, an example, it's hard to pick one thing. My mind's going in all these different directions because I think just our relationships in general, that is our win in our office. It's so fun to
Oh,
see people come in and, they've been planning for their kids or grandkids to go to college and they've been investing in their 529 all these years and all of a sudden they picked a school and they're going and they're sending off that tuition check or they've been planning retirement for decades and they've been working with Bob and Brad and now they're shifting to Scott and Jared and this whole team has helped create that opportunity for them to retire and they come in and they tell us about this awesome trip they just went in or they say we say have a nice weekend and they say every day is the weekend because I'm retired
yeah.
all those
yeah.
little things I think
Yeah.
feel like wins for what we're doing so it might not be a specific example but in general, it's those moments that always feel like a win, I think, for us. So,
Yeah. No, and you hit a key part there is the relationship side of things. And so much of our world has become transactional where you can just do it by yourself on a phone and have your food delivered to you through and all those things are great, right? Because it's their technology is awesome type of a thing, but at the same time, having that relationship, being able to call in and because I mean, I've had people call in like, hey, Scott, is Katie there? And I'm like, well, I could probably help you. Like, nah, I want to just chat with Katie real quick. Is that all right? Or hey, is Jess there? Like, oh, I got you. What's going on? Like, no, like I chatted with Jess earlier. Could you just patch me over to her? And I'm like, well, here's the deal. Patching you through, I might hang up on you. Good luck with this. But nonetheless, but it's building those relationships and those in the that connectedness with people that they're wanting to start asking more of those questions, right? And like I said, comfortable and confident was what I use with people. But the more all of a sudden you let your guard down and you go, well, what's your thoughts on this? Then you really get into the nitty gritty of what real advice can do for a person because now you're hearing what their real fears are, where they're really at, because they now know that you're listening and you care
Mhm.
about the end result that's happening. And there's so much, in the example that I gave, it is the relationship and them just kind of opening themselves up to the conversation that really resonates, right? I mean, that's really when you feel like you've made a difference and in the years that we've been here in the book that we run, and I know Jess, you mentioned this, we're a small operation in the sense that we've got this office with 6, 7 of us in here, 6, 7, nonetheless, it's stuck in my head.
Aren't you funny?
But nonetheless, we're a really big operation in the grand scheme of things of what we're capable of, right? And that's that chassis that, the Ranky Great to now New Edge, the chassis that we bolstered ourselves to is a top 5 program in the nation, right? It allows us the depth and breadth of programming and planning and tax management and all the other things that are incorporated with wealth management to be at a fingertip to what it is that we have access to. But it's in a small town of Pierre, South Dakota, with the 7 of us in the office at the top of North Lincoln Avenue, right? And I use this. I recently did a talk with the boys and gals basketball team. They had an evening thing, and one of the quotes that I gave them came from a movie, and it said, "What's the biggest lie that you were ever told?" And the guy goes, "It's not that simple." And the reporter goes, "Well, what do you mean it's not that simple? I just want to know, like, what's the biggest lie you ever told?" And he goes, "No, the biggest lie was it's not that simple." And I think that goes in a lot of things in life. It truly is that simple, but the hardest part is, are you going to be consistent and disciplined enough when it's easy to not do those things to do them again every single time? And that's where a group like us and a Katie and a Jess and a Scott and a Jared and a Maddie that's new to the team and a Bob and a Brad bring in the consistency and discipline, because it's easy to quit. It's easy to shut down. It's easy to sell. It's easy to, to not save, to splurge on something that you shouldn't have, or whatever it might be, because it's easy. Well, simple, consistent discipline is hard to do. I mean, you can ask anyone come December, their New Year's Eve resolution of cutting that 15 pounds. Come January 1st, they're certainly probably on the treadmill at the Y and it's filled up and they've got to wait for their turn to go. But if you go February 3rd, you might not see anyone in the gym, right? And it's in that consistency and discipline that gets people to where they never could have gone before, right? And it starts with relationships and the trust and the belief that you have somebody that cares about the end result rather than, just improving us. That fiduciary word that I used earlier, right? But those things are so impactful and goes with it. But that, are we small? Yeah. In the scheme of, does everybody know us? Yes. But we have the huge backing of one of the biggest companies around, which is awesome. So we've got the capabilities of everything, but with the boutique feel of what comes with calling Jess up and then kicking it over to Scott to have everything kind of taken care of from there, right? Let's go to the other side of the spectrum. Talk about wins. How about a frustration that comes up, even if it's with the yum yucks in the back of the office? I mean, is there anything that you kind of run into? You're just like, oh man, like this again? For me, it's really any time that I call in and I got to sit on an elevator music for 35 minutes and I got to try to talk to somebody that I like, well, they just hung up on me. Can I just talk to John that talked to me that had the answer last time? I mean, that's a big frustration for me, is when you get on that phone call and you wait for 37 minutes and you get you an answer in 2 seconds and you're like, well, geez, did it really need to take that long? But is there anything that stands out to you guys where you're like, this again type thing?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that I've seen probably the last 10 years of being here is how much compliance has changed. And I know like that is a huge part, right? We have to be compliant with things. But there are sometimes I feel like the compliance might take out that advisor client or office client relationship, which I'm like, oh my gosh, we have another compliance course. Oh my gosh, we have another compliance document we have to fill out. And like I said, I know there's probably rules and stuff in place in the long scheme of things that maybe we don't understand because we're not, the compliance officers. But um, I just think sometimes there's different, I should say, requirements that we have to complete to go ahead and keep up with that. The other thing that I will say, when you talk a little bit about the shift in generations, the instant gratification of things, when people say, I need funds, okay, we'll send it to your bank. Oh, and then you get a phone call. Well, how come they're not there? Well, it takes 1 to 2 business days. It's not like a debit card or swipe where, you automatically see that come out. Um, I wouldn't probably say that it's frustrating. I would say it's probably more of just a newer challenge because of what people are expecting, their
Right.
expectations.
I get the 2-day prime delivery. I don't want it in 7 to 8 days
Yeah,
or whatever
right.
it might be, right? And I always use the example of everybody wants a cattleman steak, but in their microwave meal that they can do from their own home. Like, well, no, it doesn't work like that. And then, Thanksgiving, the best Thanksgivings start on Sunday to get the turkey ready for Thursday, not Thanksgiving morning on Thursday morning, right? Like, it takes time and patience and allowing the process to work itself for that to happen, right? And in our world, there, Jess, is hey, that first 2, 3, maybe even 5 years that you start saving $50 or $100 or whatever it is a month, you might look at your account like, man, like this isn't that much money. Like, well, I mean, we just started, we just planted the tree, and that tree to start, we don't even see what's developing in that big oak tree 30 years later because it's building its root system and that very first little trunk that's coming up through the ground. But if you give that $50 or $75 or $100 or whatever it is a month, consistent water and time and discipline, all of a sudden you get to age 60 and you've got this oak tree standing 40-foot tall, casting the biggest amount of shade across the way. And that's that concept of patience. Everybody wants it now. And here's the deal. We're definitely not that group that we're going to put all your money in some basket that just quadruples in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
That's a game that can't be played in a compliant world. And my big thing there, Jess, with compliance really stems from not everybody thinks about service the way that I think that we do, where we're typically going to go like, why wouldn't I pick up the phone and talk to the person and acknowledge that it's them and verify that it is who they are? Well, there's people out there that weren't doing those things. That's where all those compliance pieces come into play.
Right.
Like, well, in our mind, like, well, of course, like if somebody says I need $10,000, I'm not just going to send it to Johnny at X bank. I'm going to be like, well, who am I talking to? What's your birthday? What's your social? All those types of things. What's the bank I'm sending it to? Can we verify to make sure it's the right one? And do all those little step-by-step pieces that just make sense to us, but obviously in some fashion somewhere weren't being followed. So now they go, well, hey, we've got to now put this hurdle here that in order to do it, you need to do these things. Certainly great play on the, hey, it's not a frustration. It's just a new thing that we've got to deal with, but I would call it a frustration. Katie, I mean, anything that you've had in your time of here, I mean, even in the sense of just, I know Jess had mentioned 529 and UTMAs. I remember talking to Brad when I initially came in and he was spouting off all these little figures and little ticker symbols and this, that, and that. I'm like, I don't even know what this guy's talking about. I don't even know anything about what he's talking about. Those are some early frustrations. Is there anything like that, Katie, in your world?
Well, I think we kind of are an office of perfectionists, whether you take that for better or worse here.
Yeah, I love it.
And I certainly am too. And I think, whenever you start something new, it can always feel a little frustrating because you don't know everything. And I think that's something, especially in today's world where there's access all over the place. You want to learn things quick and you want to learn things super, super efficiently. And sometimes things just do take patience and take time and take repetition of doing them over and over and over again. So it may feel slow. It may, and Maddie's going through this right now too. She's new at the office and it's a lot to learn at once. And we want to be as successful as we can, as quickly as we can. And sometimes that can feel frustrating to just remember, slow down and use patience and use your team. But and again, along with that, technology, right? Jess mentioned instant gratification and technology. Man, it's a blessing in our world and it's also a curse because everything can be smooth sailing and all of a sudden the internet goes down for an hour and everything's halted, everything's stopped, and that phone rings and you want to help your client, but there's really not much you can do other than say, we'll call you back in an hour when we get things up and running and it's out of our hands. But that's anywhere you go. So yeah, there's always going to be frustrations, and it's just a matter of being patient and being centered. And tomorrow's another day.
Yes, absolutely. New slate, and then Brad uses this a lot, but accepting change as a real aspect of life that's constantly being coming at us, right? And being able to adapt when maybe you were doing one thing one way and it worked, and now it doesn't. You've got to be able to change and pivot and adjust based on what's happening. And that's so much of our job is adapting from one phone call to the next, of whether it be even be tone, let alone just how you explain something, and all those things. But that's what I think is also fun about our situation and our job in general, is that there's just so much change constantly happening all the time that we're always evolving and learning and adjusting and growing ultimately as we move forward. Right. So no, all awesome stuff. we're getting the tail end of the time frame here because I'm sure the guys are gonna at some point yell at me for keeping us all on the podcast at one point. But as we look forward, right? Because in my mind, and I tell people all the time that I want another 20, 30-year relationship with people because we've got time in front of us as well. What do you guys are looking forward to, being part of New Edge, being a part of the team that we have, the addition of Maddie that we just brought into the mix, which, lightens the load hopefully in time as she picks up more of the pieces and things like that. But what kind of wakes you up and spurs you a little bit as we move forward for the next handful of years, type of a thing in our group?
Yeah, so I think growth is always fun. It's always exciting to see, new things come to fruition. But Um, I think the most exciting thing about our job and just about what we do here at an office is to, and Katie kind of touched base on this a little bit, is to see people have a starting point, but yet see them have a finish point too, and to go through that. Like that's what excites me. Like Jimmy might come in and start at $50 a month, and guess what? In 20 and 40 years, he might be able to retire early, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, I think I really look forward to building relationships with clients we have, and then now start seeing their kids and they're getting curious about it. And we're going, okay, how can we help you? How can we teach you? Um, I think to keep people informed in the long run, if you're curious about it, I always give a shout out to Mrs. Twilliger at the school because I think after she started teaching finance again, there was 4 or 5 kids knocking at her door going, "What's compound interest and how do we get to retire at 40?" That's great. I love that
Yeah.
you're learning that. And so
Yep.
I think it's just so exciting, as much as our business is growing, but also to see people wanting to start, even if it's $50, and come see us with a goal, and then let's see where that takes you.
Yeah. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, I mentioned technology earlier and how everything's at our fingertips. And like Jess said, it's really fun to see that younger generation learning more about finance and planning for their future, outside of just having a 529 that now they can make Roth contributions on in the future. But even thinking before that, what they're going to do and making their plans. And I think it's really fun to see how much our office has grown in just the 2 years that I've been here. And I'm not just talking numbers; I'm talking spread across the U.S. And it's really fun to pick up the phone and talk to somebody from Northwest Iowa and make those connections from where we move from, or to pick up the phone and how's the weather out in California today, and so is going out there to visit, or whatever it may be. So it's just really fun to see that growth kind of on a global scale, both within our own clients' worlds, but also in the world of our office, and just to see how things change so quickly for people and where they're headed. So I think what we're doing has a lot of importance and a lot of meaning to our whole client base, and so it's just really fun to again building on those relationships, see where their life is taking them. So and to be part of that.
Yeah. No, I look forward to just like you said, the team that we have here. I feel so confident with the group that we've got. I feel so comfortable with everything that we've got to share ideas, to be vulnerable in our group meetings and just shout out things and just be available to what's new. But no, this is great. What I hope here brings a little bit more of a tie in to you two up front, right? Of everything that you guys do, which is quite literally everything, right? I mean, if there's a call that's happened, you're the first ones to pick up. And in a lot of cases, you might be able to finish the race in which they needed on that first phone call. Certainly, obviously, we're all working together across the board for our clients, servicing being a big part of it, and you guys being the largest aspect of it. Because when it comes to the paperwork, when it comes to the DocuSigns, when it comes to those first engagements, you two are at the forefront of a lot of those. And I'm so thankful and I'm filled with gratitude to have you two being a part of that group that we have up front. I thought it was very important to get you on this message that we've been doing here now for, I mean, this is kind of the second year of doing this, and letting people know a little bit more inside of what we've got. But I appreciate you guys carving out a little bit of time and chatting with me. I know you guys got to deal with me all day, every day. So hopefully this was a little bit lighter on the load type thing. But I think we'll probably have another one in the future type of a thing, just to continue to develop the conversation, hopefully bring Maddie in as the next stage of what we've got to just continue to broaden what it is that we can do as far as touching the global side of it, but then growing as individuals, and then just continue to spread the word of what we're trying to get accomplished up at NewEdge, which is making a difference for the biggest of clients, the smallest of clients, and the ones that are trying to set themselves out for their future. We've got a path that you can follow with us, and we make it very simple and easy, primarily because of you two right here, right? So, like I said, I appreciate the time. Any last thoughts, last words before we just close her out?
Oh, I would say it's never too late to start, and always grow where you're planted. So it doesn't matter what your situation is, or if if you have $100,000 or if you have $100. It's never too late to start.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'd agree with Jess. I before I got into this world, um, we worked to make money, and now we've learned to let our money grow, how to make our money work for us, right? And that's something that I've learned the day to day here, and I would encourage people to do the same. And if they don't know what that means, to reach out and look into it, and to communicate with your advisor and have that relationship with them, because the more they know about your life and what's going on in your life, the better they can help you plan for a really comfortable future.
Right on. Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. We'll close things out, and we'll get this out there for people to see. Thank you very much.
Bye.